Hi, everybody. Deborah here with the Voice of Experience and E-Schoolhouse, and I'm very excited to bring to you a special guest today. This young man has been an educator to elementary kids for many years, specializing in outdoor education and science, and I'm very happy to introduce to you Mr. Brian McDaniel. Welcome, Brian.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Sure. Thanks for being on. Well, the first thing I wanted to talk about, since you teach children of our target audience, the first question I have for you is, what do you do when you're working with a child on a concept and he or she is just not getting it?
Elementary age is a really cool time to play around with different styles of learning. So if you're having students struggle in a certain area, take them outside, or have them try and listen to something, or have them look for the cues to parts of the concept that you're working on. Maybe if you're doing something with colors, have them present them different kinds of colors in different ways, or you can do stuff with music for sounds, have students make sounds. That's a really cool way to kind of get them engaged and get them on topic.
Really interesting to me how a parent will just automatically differentiate something. They don't know that's what they're doing.
Right.
They just do it naturally.
Correct.
And I love that. And I know the challenge that classroom teachers have is you've got, 30 or 40 kids that you're trying to do that for at the same time. So I'm so glad
Right.
you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. The other thing I'm thankful that you brought up is about learning styles. I think it's critically important that parents are always assessing their child's learning styles, because like you pointed out, that changes as the child grows.
It's really a really good idea to put emphasis on other styles of learning and to explore with your students or with your children, more artistic ways or maybe more non-traditional ways of learning, because we seem to cheapen those and act like they're really, we want to do those, but really it all comes down to the assessment that's on pen and paper. And in reality, in the real world, it really matters how you have learned it, regardless of whether it's on a pen and paper or whether it's in your mind or whatever way you learn it. It's important that you know yourself and know how you learn.
I agree. And, I just watching you get excited and just seeing your passion. I worked with a lot of teachers when I was an instructional coach about, trying to help them do stuff. And when I would see passion like that, I'm like, all I need to do is just get out of that person's way, bring them the resources they're asking me for and let them go. But you're as passionate about your students. And I love that. I so admire that. You're as passionate about your students as parents are about their kids. And so I love that the way you explain that, it makes it like, okay, well, if he's not getting it this way, why don't I ask him to make up a song or do something different with the same concept? So thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. The other thing, you teach science, and science, in order to do science properly, the thoughtful and the critical thinking and everything, there's some documentation that you're asking kids to do. So how do you handle that with kids who are like, I just want to do the activity. I just want to play and have fun. I don't want to do that part.
Right. So I do some front-loading techniques when I do science. So when I take a group of students out into the forest, one of my favorite kind of focusing activities, so I'll state my objective. I'll say, students, my class, our objective is to find a cool log with some creepy, crawly organisms, and we're going to check them out. That's what we're going to do today, right? So something very simple like that. And then I'll give them some tools to focus in. So what I do is an activity called I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of. And it's a real simple activity that I learned. It's actually from the Beatles Institute in Southern California. And you basically grab a tool or an object around you, and you do an I notice an activity. So you say, I notice, and you say 3 things that you notice. You then turn to your partner and you do an I wonder, and you say 3 things that you wonder about the thing that fits in the palm of your hand. And then you do an it reminds me of. And what you're giving your students is a frame of a way of thinking. You have now changed their minds into, in the forest, la da 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 da, I'm going to look around and do whatever. So you've given them a couple of more or less sentence stems to think about the world in as you're going. And so that really helps to get your students engaged. And then from there, you can say, so what I do is like I set up their journals. So I say, we're going to be scientists. You've learned 3 techniques. You're noticing, you're wondering, and you're comparing it to information that you've learned previously. So now you're acting as a scientist currently. And what scientists do is they keep journals. So we're going to keep this piece of paper, and we're going to write down these observations that we make, and we're going to collect our data, and we're going to put it into a real simple table. So right there, I've already given students data collection on a table. We're asking questions. Make it fun and go on an adventure and incorporate those questions in a way that they're questions that the students want to ask. Because when you get a kid outside near water, or you get them near a tree or near an animal, the questions are going to come out. That's the beauty of education, is that as a teacher, my job is to focus my students in a certain way and then get out of the way and let them learn.
And
so I think as a parent,
you're right. And I love those 3 questions, because none of them have a right answer. There's no wrong answer.
Correct.
To what you wonder, to what you
Correct.
notice, to what it reminds you of. And, those are great open-ended questions, and the kids feel confident. It's like, well, I can wonder about anything I want. I'm not going to be wrong. So I love that. I love that, to get those critical thinking skills really going and that kind of thing. So let me ask you then something a little bit personal about your teaching. What is your favorite thing about teaching?
I really enjoy working with kids that don't like school, which was the opposite of me.
Mm-hmm.
I like kids that have a really hard time reading and have a really hard time understanding concepts and think that they're dumb, because it's fun to show them, like, you're not, to get them out. I love to get kids out in nature who are, this is my favorite thing. We have a group of students that'll come up, and a teacher will come and say, this student never talks in front of other students, or this student never presents their ideas. Like, this is not any way how they behave. And that is my absolute favorite part of teaching, is to watch a student who has identified themselves as not good enough in a certain area to then, like, blossom and, show off. I think that's really fun. So I think that would be my favorite part.
That's amazing. And just hearing you talk, it's been about 8 years, maybe more, since I've been in education, but listening to you talk, I miss working with teachers. That passion and then the heart you have for kids, it's inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And I love the activities you're sharing. And I want to point out that this guy knows what I'm pointing this way because that's where he is on my Zoom screen. But I don't know how that's translating. But he obviously knows what he is doing. So anything that he posts, I would encourage you to try with your little kids. So Brian, thank you so much for being on with us today. I really appreciate your time.